The sun blazes over the Serengeti, casting long shadows across the dusty plains as a lone lioness approaches the park jeep, her amber eyes fixed on the two stunned rangers. But she isn't hunting. She's circling them, slowly, deliberately. Then, with a strange tenderness, she drops a bloodied, torn blanket onto the ground, revealing a crying, helpless baby. What was a predator doing with a child, and why did she choose to protect it against all instinct? But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. A bundle of fabric dangling limply from her jaws like an afterthought. Torn, stained, sagging with a weight too delicate to belong in a predator's grip. Ben's breath caught. His hand, halfway to the rifle at his side, stayed frozen mid-reach. The lioness padded closer, each step a contradiction of nature, deliberate yet gentle, not an ounce of aggression in her gait. Her eyes held no bloodlust, no tension, only something unreadable, something ancient. Lisa leaned forward, her face a mask of disbelief and fear. Her hands, already trembling, instinctively pressed against the dash. "She's bringing it to us." The lioness stopped mere meters from the bumper and, in a movement so cautious it seemed rehearsed, laid the bundle down on the sun-baked earth. The fabric unfurled just slightly with the touch of wind, revealing a flash of pink skin. Small, too small. A baby. "Oh my God," Lisa breathed. She flung the door open before Ben could say a word. "Wait!" he hissed, grabbing for her arm, but she was already out, boots crunching on brittle grass. The lioness stood motionless, watching. Her chest rose and fell slowly, ears perked but not aggressive. She made no move to stop Lisa. The vet approached with the reverence of someone stepping onto sacred ground. Dust swirled around her legs as she dropped to her knees beside the bundle. The baby stirred, a weak, mewling cry escaping its lips. Dry, hoarse, barely alive. It was breathing. Ben climbed out of the jeep slowly, his every nerve alive, eyes darting between the child and the lioness. The animal's tail twitched once. She didn't growl, she didn't lunge, she just watched. Lisa reached out and gathered the baby into her arms, cradling it against her chest with practiced care. The tiny body was warm, but only barely. Sweat broke on her forehead. "She's dehydrated, malnourished, but alive." As if satisfied, the lioness turned her head toward the horizon. She let out a deep, low rumble, neither a roar nor a growl, but something that seemed to vibrate through the dust itself. Then, without fanfare, she pivoted and began to walk away, disappearing back into the bush one step at a time, like a shadow returning to the wild. Ben stared after her, his voice hoarse. "That wasn't an accident." Lisa clutched the baby tighter, heart hammering, eyes brimming. "No, that was deliberate." Neither of them moved. The savannah held its breath. The scream still rang in the air as Lisa sank to her knees, clutching the infant against her chest. Her fingers fumbled with the edges of the soiled blanket, revealing stick-thin limbs curled in fetal defense, skin flushed red from sun exposure, lips cracked and dry. The baby wailed, a weak, rasping sound that rasped like sandpaper in the dry Serengeti air. But it was alive. Ben stood beside her now, not speaking, not moving. The shotgun hung useless at his side. His eyes, usually sharp and unflinching, were fixed on the trail of dust where the lioness had disappeared. The echo of her roar still lingered like thunder, ricocheting off unseen canyons. Lisa's hands worked instinctively, wiping grit from the baby's face, adjusting the threadbare cloth to shield it from the sun. There were faint scratches along the child's legs, possibly from thorns or grass, but no bite marks, no blood, no sign of rough handling. The lioness hadn't harmed it. She had delivered it. "Ben," Lisa said, her voice taut with disbelief. "This baby. She was carrying it gently, like it was hers." He didn't answer. He crouched beside her, scanning the grass, eyes narrowed. His years in the field had taught him how to read predators, but nothing in his mental library explained what he'd just seen. A lioness should see a human infant as prey, or at best, irrelevant. But this one had walked toward the jeep, placed the baby down like an offering, and vanished like a ghost. "Look at this," he said, nodding toward the blanket. Lisa followed his gaze. On one corner of the fabric, beneath the filth, faded but still legible, was a logo. A cartoon elephant beside some text. Sunrise Orphanage, Arusha. Lisa stared at it, then looked back toward the horizon, suddenly aware of how vast the plains were, how silent. The orphanage was over 80 kilometers away, across rough terrain, rivers, predators, and unrelenting heat. A journey no human infant could survive, no lioness would make. And yet, here they were. The baby stirred again, letting out another dry sob. Lisa pressed her lips to its forehead, heart hammering. The heat, the dehydration, the exposure, it didn't have much time. Ben stood, radio in hand, thumbing through static. "We need evac, chopper, meds, now." Lisa rose too, still holding the child, her body shielding it from the sun. "We just witnessed something impossible," she whispered. "No," Ben said, eyes hard. "We witnessed something unexplainable." And in the heavy, scorching silence that followed, the wind seemed to answer, carrying dust, secrets, and the fading echo of a lioness's cry. The hum of the jeep's engine was a dull roar in Ben's ears, but the pulse of adrenaline still thundered in his chest as he drove toward Mbale Clinic. Lisa sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the road ahead, but her mind was still far away, lost in the events that had unfolded less than 24 hours ago. They both carried the weight of the inexplicable, an inexplicable act of compassion from a predator, a deadly secret buried in the heart of the local hospital, and a child who had been marked by the cruelty of the world only to be saved by something far beyond human understanding. The drive felt interminable, and with every passing kilometer the air seemed to thicken, pressing in on them. When they finally reached the clinic, the gray, peeling building appeared almost too ordinary to harbor the kind of horrors they suspected inside. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as they stepped into the sterile, stifling hallway of the maternity ward. A nurse, her eyes darting nervously, led them to the back office, where Dr. Mwenya, a middle-aged man with deeply worried eyes, was waiting. As soon as Ben showed him the tag from the bloodied blanket, the doctor's face went pale. It didn't take much to crack the man's professional composure. Ben had been prepared for a long, drawn-out interrogation, but instead, Dr. Mwenya's hands shook as he handed over a file, one that had been hidden under layers of paperwork for far too long. "Where are the authorities?" Lisa demanded, her voice low but filled with urgency. We tried," Dr. Mwenya stammered. "But the network is far-reaching. They've covered their tracks for years. People in high places, even within the clinic itself." His voice dropped to a whisper, as if speaking any louder would summon the full wrath of those who had orchestrated the trafficking. "These babies, they were taken from mothers who were told their children died, but they didn't die, they were sold." Ben's stomach tightened. His eyes flicked down to the file in Dr. Mwenya's hands. The records, photographs of the children, names scratched out in black ink, faces hidden by shadows. The sickening reality of what they were facing hit him like a punch in the gut. These weren't just numbers or victims. These were lives. Mothers who would never hold their children again, families left in the dark about the abduction of their most precious possession. The nurse, racked with guilt, came forward, her voice trembling as she confessed. She had been the one to discard the child in the bush, believing that death would be the outcome. "I thought it was mercy," she whispered. "I thought nature would take it away. But I never thought. Ben's gaze hardened as the nurse's words hung in the air. The baby, left in the dust of the savannah, had survived against all odds. But it wasn't the mercy of nature that had saved the infant. It had been a force far more mysterious. They drove out to the site the next day, the air heavy with dust and heat. The lioness's den was a hollow in the earth, concealed by the tangle of wild grasses and thorn bushes. The bones were scattered, fragile remnants of what had once been her litter. The veterinary report was damning: signs of disease, the slow death of her cubs, the unmistakable presence of anthrax. But it wasn't just the loss of her cubs that had left its mark on the lioness. It was something deeper, something unspoken in the way she had carried her grief in silence, until she found the newborn in the bush. Ben stood at the edge of the den, staring down at the bones. His mind swirled, trying to understand. How had the lioness known? How had she chosen to protect another's baby when her own had been stolen away by the hands of illness and death? There was no logical explanation, no way to trace the chain of events. The pieces didn't fit. Yet there it was, an act of profound, animalistic empathy that defied reason. And in the quiet aftermath, Ben and Lisa both understood. They were dealing with something far more complex than the immediate danger of human trafficking or animal instinct. They were faced with a deeper truth, one that spoke of a bond between life and death, loss and survival, that neither science nor reason could fully explain. The lioness had saved the child, and in doing so, she had carried her grief to a place where it could still find meaning through an impossible act of protection. The story of the lioness spread like wildfire, igniting hearts and imaginations across the globe. It was a story too extraordinary to ignore, one that blurred the lines between instinct and compassion, between predator and protector. "The savior of the savannah!" the headlines screamed, sensational in their boldness, but fitting in their simplicity. "Motherhood knows no species" echoed across every major news outlet, each broadcast and article amplifying the magnitude of the lioness's act. It was a reminder to the world that the bounds of love and sacrifice are often beyond comprehension, often unexpected. Hope, the baby girl who had been thrust into the jaws of fate, was now the symbol of something far larger than her own survival. She had become a beacon, a testament to resilience, to the undeniable pull of life's will to survive, and to the unfathomable mysteries of the natural world. As the days passed and the stories gained traction, the world watched as this child, once abandoned, grew under the loving care of a ranger family. Ben and Lisa had seen firsthand the sharp contrast between the darkness of what was done to her and the light of what she had come to represent. Lisa, in particular, felt the weight of it. She had witnessed the lioness's silent sacrifice, the quiet yet profound shift in the predator's nature. Hope was no longer just a baby. She was a miracle, a living, breathing example of life's unpredictable, sometimes inexplicable magic. Lisa visited her often, always lingering a moment longer than she intended. Hope's smile, her laughter, the softness in her tiny hands, all filled Lisa's heart with wonder. There was something about the child that seemed to glow, something indelibly shaped by the wild, by the savannah, by that one act of defiance against nature's cruelest truths. Ben, too, was haunted by what had transpired. He had never believed in fairy tales. His world had always been one of cold facts, the grind of survival in the wild, the brutal cycles of life and death. He had spent years watching lions stalk, hunt, and kill with terrifying precision, each day a brutal reminder of the rawness of nature. And yet, what he had witnessed that day defied all his understanding of the wild. "I've watched lions tear antelopes in half," he would say to anyone who would listen, his voice low, tinged with disbelief. "But this was something holy." The words left him almost before he could process them, like an instinct, an echo of the reverence he felt deep within his chest. He had seen lions fight for their lives, for territory, for mates, but never had he witnessed a lion act in the name of mercy. In that moment, he realized the savannah, the very heart of the wild, had revealed something both ancient and tender, a deeper, primal understanding of protection, one that transcended the violence of the predator-prey relationship. In the scorching heat of the Serengeti, amidst the hum of cicadas and the rustling of dry grass, a broken lioness had found redemption, not in death, but in mercy. It was a strange kind of peace she had made, not with her own suffering, but with the gift of life she had given. The plains, with their endless horizon, carried her quiet roar in the wind, a final statement of the extraordinary and unspoken power of mercy in the wild. And in the unlikeliest of places, between the bones of the earth, beneath the watchful eyes of the sun, a predator had become a protector, and the world would never be the same.